joined today by one of the best young competitors in AMTA right now. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Hi, Phil. My name is Charlie Stock. I am a sophomore rising junior at the University of Notre Dame.
So one of the things that's been on my mind, Charlie, since we were going through the application process for combat and looking at your name and inviting you, is I grew up in South Philly, in the southern part of Philadelphia. And there is this thing in South Philly where anyone whose name is Charles or Charlie is called Cholly, Cholly. So like you'll be like walking down the streets of South Philly, you'll just hear some like 50-something-year-old Italian guy say like, "Yo, Chal, what's up?" Does anyone ever call you Cholly?
Not my witness might. I directed a Jersey witness this year. She probably would, but not growing up. I grew up from Texas, so maybe a Southern accent, Charlie, but no, not the Charlie. I have relatives up there, but never Charlie. It's always with a Southern twang.
So when Justin and I talk about you on the phone, you're Charlie Stock. So
yeah,
I'm kind of hoping that name sticks. So this is the first attempt of me trying to get that name to stick around. So
there you go. Now on, I'm Charlie.
That's right. I'm really excited to have you on the show, but I'm also really excited that you're going to be our alternate for a trial by combat this year. So congratulations. How do you feel that you're going to be out in California with us, competitor number 17, inches away from being in that field in a couple of weeks?
It's going to be fun. I'm excited to get the experience because I'm looking forward to competing, not this year, but maybe this year, who knows, but next year. And that experience is going to be invaluable. Just being able to see it. Top competitors in the country compete against each other is going to be really fun, especially like I'm going to have 2 more years of this. I've got a while to go. So that experience is going to be really helpful.
So I want to talk about the fact that you're only a sophomore in a minute or two, but I want to do a little bit of a direct examination exercise right now, if you'll indulge me for just a second. So,
sure.
Cholly, how many times has Notre Dame been invited to trial by combat?
This will be the first.
Before 2022, when was the last time Notre Dame competed at nationals?
Well, we made it to nationals in 2019, but the year, not 2019, COVID year. And then COVID happened, we didn't get to go. But the last time we competed at nationals was 2015. So it's been a minute.
So it's been 7 years since Notre Dame competed at NCT, right?
Yeah, 7 years. It's been a while.
And that was a leading question, but no one objected, so it's fine. So when the community says that the trial by combat selection committee of Phil Pasquarello and Justin Bernstein is elitist, when we just invited a first-time school who hasn't been to NCT in 7 years, what do you say to that?
I say it's wrong. I say I'm living proof that we are trial by combat is opening up, and I'm very glad because to have Notre Dame representative, something that my program wanted this year and something that I definitely wanted. So thank you for that.
Yeah, jokes aside, we're really excited. It was Justin and I really, I mean, despite what's said by I think a minority group of people, we really do try to find the 16, in this case 17 best people. And what happened in this situation was really not that complicated. Justin saw the video that you submitted and said, this younger competitor from Notre Dame who just won an All-American is really good. You should check his video out. So I watched it and I was really impressed. And we said, we should invite this guy. He's really good. He's probably one of the 17 best people for sure. And he's only a sophomore. So he's the perfect person to have as our alternate. And I was really excited. How did you feel when you got the call that you were going to be selected as our alternate?
I was excited to be able to have like just a chance to go is cool. Now, I'm not going to lie. On the phone, I was a little bit disappointed because even though I am only a sophomore, I really wanted to be one of the 16. And I thought I had a good shot at it. So I took some time to think about it. I'm thinking about it. Well, I'm going to be able to go. I'm going to be able to see everyone. I might compete if someone drops out. And even if I don't, the experience I'll gain and for next year will be huge. So it's just the chance to see top rounds and go and prep the cases, do something 24-hour prep period, which I've never done before. Can't say no to that. So it took me less than a day and I came back and said, yes, it's a great opportunity.
How cool does it feel to be a sophomore in this field? I mean,
Really cool.
not been many sophomores that have been invited to this tournament. You're one of less than 10, I think. And it's not even close to 10. I don't know the exact number. I think it's like 5 or 6 sophomores who've been invited ever. How does that feel to be so young and be in this field?
Yeah, I know the company I'm with, and it's some pretty great company. Sydney Gaskins is the name that pops into my head. Great, awesome names who've been competing at Trial by Combat, and to do it as a sophomore, potentially, at least going as an alternate, and to be doing it as a junior next year, it's very exciting.
So I want to ask you some questions about Notre Dame and the program. How many teams does Notre Dame field each year?
We have 3 teams, A, B, C team. We stack probably after like 2 tournaments, scramble them at the beginning of the year, random, and then we'll stack and compete in our ABC teams.
I would imagine because Notre Dame is not a traditional mock trial powerhouse, that it's kind of difficult to get invited to the invitationals that you want to get invited to. Where do you guys go to compete in the fall?
So in the fall, we competed at Michigan State's tournament. We competed at Illinois' Invitational. Come by January, competed at Indiana's Hoosier Hoedown. We competed. Oh, we did get a spot at GCF this year, which was cool. It was like a last minute, like we need like a sort of like alternate team in case like because they didn't want to have a buy bus team. So we were like on standby. And then we ended up going and competing at GCF and finishing 5-3, and we got an honorable mention. So,
yeah, so I saw that you guys had competed in the Great Chicago Fire Tournament, but I did not know that was how you guys were invited. I would imagine it's frustrating to be a really talented team and to know the kind of talent you guys have in the building, and not get invited to what are perceived as the top tier tournaments. How does that feel, and how do you guys kind of work around that?
It was tough last year because I was the one in charge of getting the invitation. I was like the VP of travel, like in charge of like communicating with all the other programs and getting us invitationals. And yeah, I mean, it's tough not being invited to the top ones because like the practice makes perfect. You practice against the top teams, you compete against the top teams, you're going to be able to compete well against the top teams later in the year. If the first time you're competing against those teams is during the stack season, it's going to be hard to succeed if you're not seeing that level of talent throughout the year. Hopefully, now that we've proven ourselves and we're only getting better, I guarantee you we'll be back at nationals next year. We'll be able to get more high-level invitationals this next year.
So you heard it first on WatchMock. Cholly Stock guarantees a nationals berth for Notre Dame next year. So that's going to be the headline on this episode for sure.
Headline, put it up there. Notre Dame's coming back.
I love it. Are you guys student run?
We are. We are student run. We hire coaches though.
Who are your coaches?
The coach of our A team is Henry Lehman, who is a former competitor at the University of Miami, Ohio. And then we have the coach of our C team, newly hired, Sierra, who is a former competitor at Maryland. And then we are currently in the process of hiring a new coach for our B team.
How does who is kind of in charge of the decision-making process when it comes to where you guys go to compete? Roster decisions, team assignments, roles? Is that the coach's purview? Do the students control that, or is it a mix of the two?
It's a mix of the two. So hiring coaches is done by the exec board, but once it comes to stacking decisions, putting together those A, B, and C teams, it's a mix of coaches and students. So we'll usually put together rosters of what we anticipate we want those teams to be. And then any unanimous decisions between all of us will just slot in the teams. And then if there's any disagreements, we'll all talk about it, the 5 exec board members, and then the 3 coaches, and then we'll vote on it afterwards. And that vote will determine where that individual student will be placed.
So I would imagine for some programs, winning their org or getting out of their org is kind of a relief for the teams that are there year in, year out. But I would imagine for your program, it was kind of an amazing experience to get out of your org and get back to nationals for the first time since 2015. How did it feel when you guys were there at the closing ceremony and the announcement was made that you guys got through?
It felt so good. It felt so good because it was a long time coming. Because last year we finished 6-6 and we had a tough draw. Well, we faced some very hard teams and we lost some ballots that we thought we should have won. And this year we started off round 1 and we split our C group team, and we were like, oh, not again. And we end up our second day winning all our ballots. Then the last round, we're like, all right, we can do this. We have to win both or split, and then we'll make it. This is our best shot in years. And we had Berkeley. And we're like, oh gosh, we have Berkeley. I thought we lost the round afterwards. I thought we got swept. They were incredible. And we ended up splitting. We got a split. So we ended up finishing 6-2. We got the fourth bid out of our orcs. And I just stood up, everyone in the room probably thought I was insane. I was so excited.
So you saw two of our combat competitors in this year's field, Alekri and Juliana Mayer from Duke. For people that are watching this and want to know what they can expect in Los Angeles in a couple of weeks, what'd you think of those two?
Well, Ali was a witness when we competed against him. He played like a James Bond type of Peyton Travis, and he was so good. He was directed by Ethan on Chicago, Ethan C. And that direct was awesome. That was their first direct. And from the get-go, we were like, oh, this is going to be a tough round. Not the draw that we wanted first round for sure. And then Duke was excellent. Duke is very clean across the board. I wouldn't say very different style from Chicago, but very clean. Their objections were, oh my gosh, they battered me on objections on my Butters direct. Their objections were very clean. So both of those schools were excellent. Duke was not fun to go against round 4 because Notre Dame has never, or at least not since like 2003, had a positive record at nationals. And we had the chance to be the best like Notre Dame team since that 2000, like way back when we had times when we sent 2 teams to nationals and went positive, but not since then have we gone a positive record at nationals. And I wanted it so bad, and we drew Duke, and they swept us, and it just, my heart sunk. But they were excellent.
What did you think of Juliana?
Very good, very clean, very good. Honestly, all of their attorneys, all of their witnesses, that round, I don't know. It's sort of, I haven't watched the film. I don't want to watch the film again. It hurts too bad.
Well,
but yeah, she was excellent.
You're not the first person to give the Duke clean comment. If people remember when I had Seva on the show, that was like the weird thing that people said about him on on impeachments, that he was like a very clean competitor. So maybe whatever Eric Reutman's feeding them over there, maybe that's the kind of competitor they've been breeding over the last couple of years, the clean competitor.
It's working.
Who are your coach and second chair going to be at combat? By now, the rest of the competitors know. That's been released to the field, but the public doesn't know. Who's going to be riding with you in Los Angeles?
Yeah, so my coach is my A-team coach, Henry Lehman, who's been coaching me the past 2 years. He's an excellent coach. And then my second chair is my witness, who I direct, also an All-American, freshman All-American. Her name's Isabella Leak.
That's a star-studded cast there, a very young team. Was there any kind of strategy behind taking a freshman with you as your second chair in terms of like development and stuff like that? Or was it more just like going to pick the best person?
Just going to pick the best person, the person that I work with really easily. She's awesome. We worked together all year. So yeah. So
I actually think of all the people I've asked to make predictions, you may be in the best position to make a prediction because most of these people are going to graduate. You're never going to have to see them again. So like, you don't have to worry about hurting feelings or anything like that. Who do you think is going to win?
You know what? I think with her invaluable experience last year as a first alternate, I'm gonna say Ruby.
So multiple people have chosen Ruby, and I like Ruby a lot. I think she's a really good competitor. Have you seen her on the circuit much?
I have. We scrimmaged against her before nationals, and they definitely poked some holes in our defense. We scrimmaged them a week before nationals. We drove up to Northwestern, and I got to see her firsthand in person, and she was excellent.
What do you think makes Ruby so good?
Just being off, like it's a blend of the style between being off the cuff and being polished, and that's hard to do. Like you have some competitors who are very folksy, very just like natural, but some judges don't like that. Some judges like the really clean cut, super polished, super straightforward. And I think she blends the two very well, and it makes her very not polarized, I would say. She's going to score well consistently. And if you get one judge who just doesn't like your style at TBC, you're sort of done for. And I think she is bad judge proof, I would say.
So keeping with our theme over the last couple episodes, we're going to do a little bit of trial by combat scouting. And thanks to the folks at Tufts and UC Santa Barbara, we're going to watch Tufts v UCSB at Nationals from just about a month or so ago. And we're going to watch Maddie Whalen's closing in that round. Have you seen any of Maddie on the circuit?
Not in person, but I've watched this close. I watched the round after they released it, and it was a very good round. I scored it. And it was a very good round.
Most of the community does not know, or at least a good portion of the community doesn't know anything about this case. Why don't you give those who don't know anything about the Nationals case a kind of a brief synopsis of what we're about to watch?
Yeah. Well, okay. So what most teams run, there was one little like weird plaintiff theory that some teams are running, but most teams are running the theory that the defendant, Gene Riggs, was in a conspiracy. Okay, the defendant, Gene Riggs, is a police officer, and he was involved in a conspiracy to steal drugs and sell drugs from the Midland State Drug Lab. So he's working in cahoots with his partner, Officer Murtaugh, and a lab technician at the police lab, Casey Bartholomew. And together, those three, they're stealing drugs from the evidence lab, skimming them off the top, and then going out and selling them off on the street. So yeah, it's charges of fraud and embezzlement. So lying on police evidence forms about the amount that's in those evidence bags. And then embezzlement of official state property.
So Tufts was the prosecution in this round, and UCSB was the defense. So we're going to watch Maddie's defense closing. Let's get into this.
Do you remember the first thing the state told you? They were stealing, lying, and working together. Now, since the first time we heard them say that, we've heard these attorneys repeat that phrase over and over.
This will work well at
They can
TBC.
say it.
What makes you say that?
It's responsiveness, because at TBC, I didn't realize at the beginning when I was looking at the rule book that it's not scored in the same way that regular mock trial is. I didn't realize it was just the check marks, and there's a whole check mark for responsiveness. So starting closing with something that is obviously not prepped, repeating their theory and saying it in an incredulous way is something that I think will score well at TBC to win that responsiveness check.
Yeah, and for those who are watching who don't know, traditional amped ballot, obviously the portions of the trial are scored 1 to 10. Trial by combat is inspired by Baylor's Top Gun, which is the law school one-on-one event. And at Top Gun, there are 5 check marks that are up for grabs. There's no point system. It's the judges have to decide who wins the opening, who wins the closing, whose directs were better, whose crosses were better, and who's better on evidence. And whoever wins the most of those 5 check marks wins the ballot. The combat ballot is very similar, except there are 7 check marks instead of 5. And one of those additional categories, as Charlie said a second ago, is responsiveness.
All they want, members of the jury, but that line doesn't prove anything. And it certainly doesn't prove that Miss Riggs lied to or stole from the police. Because one fact is clear. Miss Riggs didn't know where those drugs were coming from. But that's not to say we don't understand why the state is upset. Why they want justice.
This is one strategic choice that I think UCSB, because UCSB in this trial said that their defense theory was that Riggs was like, because there's like the evidence that the state uses against Riggs is like one of the pieces of evidence is drug tests, which test positive for the same kind of drugs that that lab technician, Casey Bartholomew, died from. And it's like verbatim the same kind of drugs in her system and in that like next to the dead body. And there, like a lot of teams argued that at some point, Officer Riggs found out about this stealing occurring. Like, oh, I found out that my partner and this lab technician were stealing drugs, but I had no part in it. It's an interesting choice, I think, not to concede that, but what UCSB conceded was that Riggs was consuming those same drugs, that Riggs was a drug dealer. And we like thought about that defense theory in the beginning. And we ended up deciding against it, but they portrayed it in such a way that seemed very realistic. We're not going to watch their Riggs direct, but in their Riggs direct, they made it seem very realistic that she was consuming drugs, but she wasn't stealing drugs from the evidence lab. And that's like, on its face, you wouldn't think that would be something that they could pull off, but they pulled it off very well. And it seemed very credible. I just wanted to point, it was a very interesting strategic choice when I watched this round.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that I think separates mock trial from real trial. One of the things that I didn't really think about when I was a college competitor, but I think about a lot as a coach at the law school level is what, a theory that we're kicking around or an argument that we're kicking around, is that something that could realistically happen in a courtroom? Or, even if it's legally sound, is it something that a real lawyer would actually say? And that's one where I'm not sure. I'm not saying I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. There's something about that makes me wonder whether a trial lawyer might say, you would never concede that your client did something illegal like that.
Yeah.
Particularly a law enforcement, a defendant who's a law enforcement agent. And so I wonder about that. That wouldn't have offended me, but I could see that offending someone who, is a criminal defense attorney or a public defender who does this every day. It knows my client would never allow me to concede that he or she was selling drugs, even if it's not, dispositive of this particular crime.
Yeah, because it worked really well for their performance. Like, it seemed very trustworthy, like during their defendant direct, and it was able to explain away some of the prosecution's best evidence against her. But like, you have to ask, like when I was thinking, like, the reason why we decided against using this theory was like, okay, you're admitting that this person is using drugs and the charge against them is stealing drugs. Like, you're telling me they had access to the same kind of drugs and she's addicted and she never once took it from the lab. But like, it was very polarizing in this round. I don't know if that specific direct was the deciding factor, but like Tufts had like a +20 ballot and UCSB had like minus, like UCSB won the other two by single digits. And that's what kept Tufts from the final round. Yeah.
And that this round was obviously huge to your point a second ago, and Tufts finishing second instead of first in their division. One of the things that I'm always thinking about as a real trial attorney is, yes, do I have the facts to make out my case, from a legal perspective, but, is this going to sound really bad to a jury? And there have been times where I think the other side, in cases that I've, tried or been on the trial team for, the defense has had a legally sound argument, whether it be on causation or on a statute of limitations argument or something. And part of, the way I think about the case is, I just don't think a jury is going to care about that. Like, I just don't think that they're going to be so moved by, this other thing or the emotion of the evidence that we have. They're not going to throw our client out on a technicality, even if they believe it. Even if the defense had the stronger side on that argument. So in this situation, I wonder if they went through that thought process to think, well, okay, maybe if they believe our story, we are legally correct and our client's off the hook, but maybe we run the risk of a real jury or a real trial lawyer who's acting as a juror thinking a real jury may convict this person, even though they haven't actually proven all the elements, out specifically, because they conceded that you did all these bad things anyway. It's definitely a risk.
Yeah. And half the battle in this game is performance. I mean, if you're able to say, oh, I'm a drug addict, oh, I'm the victim, looks good for a defendant. For sure. Yeah. It also depends on the witness portraying it. And Tufts has an excellent witness. I mean, they have an excellent everything, but their witnesses are really, really good this year. Yeah. UCSB too. Yeah.
Decided to cheat the system because we want that too. But there's no justice in sending an innocent woman to jail. That's why when the state walked through those doors today, the law placed a very heavy burden on their table. One that can't just be met by repeating the same line over and over. They have to prove to you that Miss Riggs knowingly falsified records and stole state property. And they have to prove that to you beyond a reasonable doubt. They failed to do that. And to show you why, I want you to remember two facts when you walk into that deliberation room. First, Miss Riggs didn't know anything was false about the evidence log. Now, the state has rested their entire case on this evidence log. You got to see it today. Mr. Dembski tried to tell you that.
One thing that's going to be very nice about an in-person TBC as opposed to online in the past years is you're going to be able to do stuff like this, where you're going to be able to move to make points and stuff like that. Because I feel like online was fine, but that was lost. It's very nice to be back in person, be able to do that again. Her moving to emphasize her point when she's starting with her 1 and 2 organization, moving on point 1. You can't do that online, or at least it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that there was, you make use of your space online as best you can, but there's a certain energy I think that comes along with your physicality in a courtroom. And I agree with you. Like the thing that she just did wouldn't look nearly as good because she'd be out of the frame probably. But even if she could stay in frame, it wouldn't look nearly as good. I think you're right. Yeah.
This log was falsified because it says cocaine in the description of evidence. But members of the jury, he left out one very important word. It says presumptive cocaine. It says appears to be heroin, and the state's own expert told you that baking soda and those cutting agents look exactly like the drugs they're mixed in with. There's nothing false about that. But we agree with the state that the gross weight of these evidence logs, they've been falsified. But it's not enough to just prove they're false. They have to prove that Miss Riggs knew they were false. And the only way they could do that is with Officer Murtaugh. But I want you to remember why Officer Murtaugh is testifying today, and that reason is in my hands. It's his plea agreement. Mr. Dembski tried to tell you that a plea deal isn't a reason to lie. It's a reason to tell the truth. Members of the jury, Mr. Murtaugh could get his entire sentence revoked for just taking that stand today. He could get back to his family that he talked to you so much about.
One thing I really like about her style, it's not like a quote unquote mock trial voice.
Nope, not at all.
Like classic members of the jury.
Right.
Like it sounds like a real person talking. And when you're especially in person, when you're trying to convey an argument to a jury, if you're able to sound like a human being, it's a lot better than sounding like a mock trial robot. Yeah,
I have two things. The first is when she came on the show recently, and that was the first time I had met her or spoken to her, and she's got like a very nice, like bubbly personality, and I'd never seen her compete. That was the first time I'd spoken to her or actually like heard her speak. And then watching this, I was like, whoa, that is not what I expected. She is like forceful. She is really, really, really good. And to your point, she doesn't do the voice. She doesn't do the mock trial, like typical thing. The other thing substantively is, and I'm not being critical of Bennett at all, but I think since Justin and Rahul Hari in the 2015, or Ben Wallace, I should say, in the 2015 Top Gun final, did the whole like the plea agreements are a reason to tell the truth thing. It's a persuasive argument, and everyone has kind of done it. I really like the way Maddie adjusted there, and it was really, really good that she kind of turned that argument on its head. I love that she incorporated the get back to his family they talk so much about on the stand. And I loved that part. And we're about to see another thing that she does with it, about the kind of lying argument that I thought was really effective.
Yeah, it's just like turning the facts against the team who used them. Yeah, using what their witness is trying to say, like, oh yeah, my family, I would never lie. The whole reason you're trying to lie is because you want to get back to your family. You started this story when you were in prison and you couldn't see them.
He lied to everyone in his life for 5 years. You don't think he could put on a show on that stand for 5 minutes?
I love that. And I don't know if that's been recycled. Like I'm sorry if that's been recycled and someone else has said it and it's not original, but it's the first time that I heard someone say, do you like, he lied for 5 years. Do you think he couldn't lie for 5 minutes on the stand?
Yeah.
I love that.
I did the defense close. I wish I had heard it. I probably would have put it in mine. It's next.
Yeah, I thought that was superb writing.
Yeah.
In fact, we actually know he told a lie today in court. And the state's own expert witness let us know that. Because Mr. Murtaugh told you that he never sold any drugs. Then Mr. Dembski just got up here and told you that Miss Rudd saw Mr. Murtaugh selling drugs. So which is it, members of the jury? Because one of them's lying and the state can't have it both ways. And either way, it's reasonable doubt.
That's all off the cuff
Nowhere left.
on the trial itself. None of that's prepped.
Yeah, no, it has to be. And I'd be really curious to see her script and see like how much of it is actually I mean, obviously some of it is reactive because it has to be, but there's a good chance that she just said, I'm going to talk about the Murtaugh stuff here. And she kind of just added a line or two and it seemed off the cuff and it actually wasn't. Which is really, really smart. Like I think it's great. Just as good.
You got your little opening section, law section, then her Murtaugh section
right.
comes, and then everything in the Murtaugh section's off the cuff. And she did a great job. And the lines that she's using are very impactful, and that'll come off really huge at TBC because the whole point is to separate yourself. It's not like you can score it, because if you score a 10, that's great. But if your opponent scores a 10, check marks a wash. Right. You have to put the lines in to like moments that will separate yourself.
Right.
Planning those will be huge, especially for TBC.
Right. The thing that I also like, and I wonder if a trial by combat pool is more sensitive to this, because it's something that I'm very sensitive to as a judge. I don't like when I hear rhetoric, and this isn't about the thing I said a minute ago with Bennett. Like the thing that Bennett said in his closing about the plea agreements are reason to tell the truth, he has to make that argument. Like I think I'm not criticizing him at all. I think he must say what he said. And I think it was good that he said that. But when people say, like use like the generic one-liners that we've seen in a million videos over and over, I really don't like it. I'm very sensitive to it, and it turns me off immediately to if it's a cross or a closing or an opening or whatever it is. And this closing is very original, which is one of the other things I like about it. It's very specific to this case. It's not, you can tell she didn't just take, oh, let me just take all my one-liners from the arson case and try to pigeonhole them or fit a square peg into a round hole for this closing. She did not do that at all. It's very specific to this trial, this case, which I like a lot and appreciate.
Yeah. I mean, you can have like formats, I think, that work, but to try to use specific lines from one case to another is never going to work.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I think as a younger competitor and even as a younger coach, I could have been better about. I was very much like, let me look at the 15 things that I've done over the last however many years that I liked and see if they work here and try to reuse them. And I've gotten away from that a lot the last couple of years as a coach. And I purposely will not look at my old stuff when I'm, when we're crafting content and things like that. And so I really appreciate that she's doing that in this closing. That's why she was selected. She's really, really good.
Yeah.
The state tried to say that because Miss Riggs' name is on this evidence log, it means she must be involved. Then I ask you, members of the jury, where's the trial for Officer Park? Officer Allen, Officer Bowman, Officer Duran? There were 5 other officers.
All right, Charlie, trivia. Those last names, why are they in the case?
Those are former TBC competitors. I know.
Wrong.
I don't know.
So
Park, Bowman, Allen.
Let's do it again.
I don't recognize those names.
Of the jury, where's the trial for Officer Park?
Park.
Officer Allen.
Allen.
Officer Bowman. Officer Duran. There were 5 others.
Duran.
So I'll give you a hint. I wrote this exhibit.
Am I too young for this? Is this like from a
You're too
case that
young.
I wasn't on the team?
You're too young for this.
Okay, maybe. Is it from a former case?
Yeah. So Park, Bowman, Duran, who's the last one? And Allen are names of parties from old AMTA cases when I was a competitor. So the 2015 pre-nationals case was Park v. Duran. The 2013 case was Allen v. Neptune. And the 2014 case was State v. Bowman. So
Yeah.
that is why I chose those names.
If I had those rounds, I would watch them. I am the biggest proponent of film. That's one thing. Our film library is not as extensive as other programs, and that's one thing. We just started like a film database, so that I put some of my favorite rounds in there. So hopefully we can change that in the future.
You know what's funny about that? Like when I was a competitor, I was the same way. Like I really wanted to watch as much video as I could, and I scoured the internet to find rounds, and I bought the ones on AMTA's website and all that stuff. But now there is, I think, almost too much on YouTube to watch. Like there's a lot. I mean, for example, just between the tournaments that I host, Battle of the Experts, which is Drexel Law's invitational for law school, and Trial by Combat, which has been online the last 2 years, and then the 2 final rounds previously. There's like 50 rounds on my YouTube channels to watch.
Yeah.
And obviously they're not all of the same quality, but it's a lot to watch. And I would have loved to watch those rounds as a young competitor, even the bad ones.
Trial by Combat ones are helpful.
For sure. And those are all high quality rounds. So the fact that there's that many rounds on YouTube, it's almost overwhelming. Have you seen most of the Trial by Combat rounds, would you say?
Yeah, I've watched most of them. It's the same case over and over and over again. It gets old, but it's cool to see the style of competitors that I might compete against.
What do you think is the best Trial by Combat round ever? What, even if it's not a championship round, if it's a prelim?
Oh, that's tough. I liked. Oh, it's hard. I liked Sonali's win.
The 20 final.
Yeah, versus Sydney.
That's a really good one.
Those are two just like top of the top. Like, I mean, they obviously it's TBC final, but I think that was the two competitors that should have been in that final round, and they competed as if they were the two competitors who should have been in that final round.
I would venture to guess that that 2019 Trial by Combat field was really, really good. I mean, they're all really, really good. But that 19 field, if you go back and look at the names, were really, really, really good. And it was all in person, and they're not all on video, obviously, only the final is. My guess is there's a couple of those that are not on video that were just outstanding rounds.
Yeah.
I mean, Sydney is a sophomore, Regina Campbell, obviously Stephen and John and Sabrina Grandi and you know, all those folks, like really, really, really good that year. That'd be my guess. It's one of those that no one will ever see.
Yeah.
There are officers on this log who are not in trial. And they never will be. Because the state knows that your name being on this evidence log isn't proof of anything. Their own expert agrees. Because she told you she didn't see anything wrong with Miss Riggs's numbers the first time she looked at this log. No, the only time she found something wrong was after her favorite student told her to take another look. This log doesn't prove their case at all.
I think that was, I think that's a point that most teams didn't make, because a lot of teams took different routes with butters, and some were more objectionable than others. And the one that Tufts ran was amazing. Their butters was excellent. Fatima won I think she got the top witness in the DOS division, or at least tied for it. Well, she was up there. But it was much less objectionable, and I think less hard hitting. And most teams who couldn't make this point on close, but Maddie did it very well, saying that just because yes, Riggs's numbers were off in the evidence log, but so were all the other people. So were Allen, so were Park, so were Bowman, so were Murtaugh. Just because hers are off doesn't mean that. What's most likely, lab technicians just doing it on their own.
Right.
She's doing her job, turning them into the lab, and lab technicians stealing the drugs unbeknownst to Riggs. And I think that was a point that because Tufts did the route they did with their butters, she could make that point in closing, and it hit very hard.
Riggs didn't know where the drugs were coming from. Now, the only two witnesses the state could bring to you today to try and prove that Miss Riggs was embezzling drugs from the state, that was Officer Murtaugh and Miss Rudd. We already know how much we can trust Officer Murtaugh, so let's talk about Miss Rudd. Miss Rudd, who got up here and told you, I want Miss Riggs to spend just as much time, if not more time, in prison than I did. Miss Rudd, who was arrested by Miss Riggs, of course she has every reason in the world to want to see her put away. That is reasonable doubt, members of the jury, and Miss Rudd cannot be trusted. Yet the state wants you to believe that it's our witness versus theirs. That's nowhere near the burden they have to meet today. Because it's not Miss Riggs versus any witness that takes this stand. No, it's any witness that takes this stand against all other plausible explanations. It's any witness that takes this stand beyond a reasonable doubt.
That's a good line. I haven't heard that before. That's good.
Yeah, I like that a lot too. I'll be critical of her for a second, and maybe we're about to see this in a minute or two. I don't remember, but I think she is very intense in a good way. I think the problem is, though, when you're intense for 9 straight minutes, it's kind of, it loses its effect after a while. So I'd like for her to find a moment, a paragraph in her closing where she's lowering her volume, soft for emphasis, that kind of thing. And maybe that's coming, but I think this closing would benefit from that.
Yeah, variance in volume. I've definitely had comments like, you can't just scream for 4 minutes. So yeah, gotta go.
Right.
I think it's reasonable that the state only called witnesses who are here to help themselves. Then you cannot find her guilty. Members of the jury, today you got to meet Miss Riggs. We're not here to try and convince you that she's a perfect person. She's not. She's made some mistakes.
Low volume.
Yeah, I think the reason her volume sounds low is because she's away from the camera.
Oh yeah.
I think she can be even softer on this. And I often tell the people that I'm coaching, when you get to moments like this, you want to show me what you perceive to be a whisper, because we can hear you and it's not actually a whisper. And there's many times of practice where I'm like standing in the back of the room and I'm like, softer. We can all still hear you, softer. It's not, you're not getting too low yet. And I think she could have pretty much said this at a whisper and been fine.
Yeah, especially on a point like this when you're trying to humanize your client. This is your personification of the person that you're trying to portray as evil, getting low and soft and like, I don't know, it puts off like view them in a kind way vibes.
Right.
But your verdict doesn't depend on whether or not you agree with every single decision she's ever made. Because members of the jury, it is your job to determine if Miss Riggs was involved in these crimes beyond a reasonable doubt. And I want to remind you that Miss Riggs didn't have to take that stand today. She didn't have to relive the hardest part of her life in front of a group of strangers, but she did. Because she wanted you to hear the truth from herself. The truth that her partner manipulated her from the very start of their relationship. Her partner saw someone struggling in recovery from addiction and decided to turn her into a constant flow of cash.
Victimizing the defendant. Yep. That's why they chose the theory they did, so they could victimize the defendant.
I would like to hear more about that in closing, about the evidence or the argument as to why and how this person, quote unquote, manipulated her client. I think it's an effective argument too. I think fleshed out a little bit more in the closing. Obviously, you don't have a ton of time, but 30 seconds on that point, I think would be useful.
Yeah, because that's the point that the judges this is this is only round one. But like some of these judges will have seen the case before if they're in
Right.
later rounds. Like that's the point they wouldn't have seen before. That's the point that they won't be expecting. That's only specific to their theory. Spending more time on that point, I think, would be helpful. The fact
Care
that
about the
because she's a
average
drug
human
addict, she's being taken advantage of.
Right.
process. So when the state couldn't bring you facts that proved her guilt,
And I feel like we're being really critical of Maddie. This is a really good closing. I think we
No,
started
it's an excellent closing.
amazing. Um,
If
I-
they beat Buffs, it's got to be a good closing.
yeah, for sure. I didn't like that she went back to her client and then in the middle of the closing, it felt like that was going to be like the soft landing. And when I saw that part, I thought, oh, I guess the closing's over. That felt kind of short, and then it's not over for like another minute or two. So I would have rearranged that and put that let's humanize my client moment where you go back and touch their shoulders or whatever. I would have done that at the end.
they wanted you to presume. But the law says that the only thing we can presume about Miss Riggs is her innocence. Because when Miss Riggs walked through those doors, she was innocent until proven guilty. So when the state can't prove Miss Riggs knew anything was wrong on this evidence log, she's presumed innocent. When the state can only call unreliable witness after unreliable witness, she's presumed innocent. When the state cannot deny that Miss Riggs didn't know, she's not only presumed innocent,
She is.
she is innocent.
So she made a choice there to get even louder.
Yeah,
And-
loud upon loud, which would be, I think it worked well in this specific trial because it contrasted big to Bennett's style. Bennett's
Right.
closing right before this is very sort of like even keel, sort of like classic, like prosecution, like we have all the evidence stacked against them, just laying out the facts. And it was an excellent close, but it wasn't like super incredulous, like, oh, what is going on here? We're so injustice and all that stuff.
Right.
Like Maddie's sort of style is just offended at how horrible this everything is. Bennett's was very even keel. And I think
Right.
because she differed, she scored well.
I'd be curious to know what that scream was like in the room. On camera, it's a little jarring because it's on camera, but if in the room, it's a big room, maybe it's a little different. I'm not even saying I'm right. I'd be curious to know if she would have went again in the polar opposite direction. And instead of doing, when they can't prove and screamed it, if she would have went, the other way and contrasted her typical, pretty loud and intense, tone throughout this closing with a really, really soft whisper on that last one. I wonder if that would have been just as effective.
Yeah.
And maybe less polarizing, but obviously they like this closing in the round. So what do I know? It scored really well.
One thing that was weird, but some of these courtrooms echoed bad. So I don't know if that had anything to do with why she chose a certain volume over others, but like some of the courtrooms were very echoey.
Not guilty. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, I mean, it was phenomenal. I think with amateur competitors, I'm mostly impressed with the performance, but this was the rare situation where I liked a lot of her content decisions. I really liked them. And I would guess that the content decisions were just as much part of why this round went the way it did as the performance of the closing. I think she's fantastic. She wasn't on my radar pre-TBC selection. And she very much so is on my radar and hopefully everybody else's at this point. And I think she's a real contender in a few weeks.
I agreed. Yeah, her defense close was excellent. Defense close was fun across the board this trial because like the prosecution's witnesses, depending on their call, was like a drug dealer, a dirty cop, and either a biased FBI guy or a biased drug analyst guy.
Yeah. And it was really cool for me. I was on the NCT case writing committee, and it was really cool for me because I was in the unique position where I wasn't on the committee from the beginning. I was kind of brought into the committee when there was a draft of the case already done. It was about 80% done, something like that. And I got to kind of read what they had done, give some feedback with a fresh perspective. And, one of the things that we kicked around was how good are these crosses going to be? Are they going to be too good for the defense? I think there's obviously multiple schools of thought on that. I think it's probably a good thing that the prosecution won in the final round. If it was a defense win in a final round, maybe there's some more complaining about case balance or something like that. But prosecution won in the round that mattered most. And I think, the good prosecution teams found a way to separate themselves. And I thought that this closing was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree. It was an excellent closing. Great variance of tone. Awesome, seeming natural, off the cuff responsiveness to the trial. It was excellent. She's going to be really good at TVC.
So other than getting ready for trial by combat, what are you doing this summer?
I'm working. I will be doing an internship next summer. So this summer, it'll be my last summer at home. So I've been spending time with family, getting to see them who I haven't seen in a while, and I'll just work and make money.
What is the plan if none of the 16 competitors drop out between now and the time the tournament starts or the time the tournament ends? You guys going to hang out in LA, watch some of the rounds? What's the plan?
Well, I mean, I'm still going to prep the case in case something happens last minute, but if no one drops out, I'll be watching other people's rounds if I'm allowed to do that, right?
I'm actually not sure. And usually at these points, at these times where I'm not sure what our rules are, I'll say defer to the rule book. I think the rule book, I'm pretty sure the rule book actually prohibits scouting. So forget everything I just said. You can't watch the rounds.
If I'm not a competitor and I am allowed to watch rounds, I would love to. That'd be awesome. If I'm not, then I'll just hang out in LA. I've never been to LA before, so it'll be fun. My dad's bringing me there. Me and him will hang out in LA.
Yeah, first time having trial by combat in Los Angeles. I'm super excited to go out to UCLA and have our tournament there. Justin and I are in the midst of planning the logistics, and I think everyone's going to be really happy with the way the tournament goes. And knocking on wood, it's going to be an excellent weekend. Cholly, thank you so much for coming on, and congratulations on being selected as a sophomore again. It's a really incredible accomplishment, and you should be really proud of the season that you had and that Notre Dame had. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you in a few weeks.
Thank you so much, Phil. It's an honor to be on. I'm a big fan.